Step number 102, adjusting your linkage. This takes a little bit of a feel and you'll get it right. You just have to play around with it a little bit. First thing we're going to do is make sure that our throttle servo, again, is set to exactly 90 degrees. And you can see on mine that it isn't, so we're going to use our trim. And on my radio, I'm actually going to use a sub trim. And we're going to bring that to exactly 90 degrees from the servo. Now let's go ahead and pull the throttle, and it's going to bring our linkage back, and it's going to open up the carburetor. You can see the carburetor arm opening up here. However, you can see right now that it's not fully opening my carb. When I go back, I can still pull back on this and open the carb an additional amount. So we're going to have to compensate for that. There's a few different ways that we can do it, and the first one that we're going to do is to use the little collar here to adjust. Looking for my wrench again, to adjust the collar so that we actually get a little bit more throw on there. We're going to loosen this up and we're going to pull this in just until it just about touches, but not quite, maybe a half a millimeter from it, and tighten it back up because we had quite a bit of a distance here. Let's go ahead and pull on our throttle again. We'll see that it does open it up a bit more. However, we still have a bit more to go here. So there's a few different ways that we can address this. The first way to address it, and I'm going to try it on this one, is I'm going to move it out to the farther hole on the arm. Put it back on. Let's see what that does. There we go. That brings me to full open. Okay. The second way you can address this is with your end point adjustment on your radio, if you so happen to have that, or your throw adjustment. You can always add a little bit more throw to it. I'm going to turn the Baja around and let's take a look at how we know it's fully opening or not. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look right in here, and as we open it up, you can see there's a stop right here. I'm going to zoom in on this, so bear with me. And as we pull forward, you can see that when our trigger is exactly all the way forward, no, when we pull our trigger back, there we go, forward is brake. When we pull our trigger back, that is just touching that. If you pull your trigger back and it hammers down and you still have a lot more to go, you're going to have to use your endpoint adjustment or your trim to back it up so it's just touching at full throttle. If you have it any more than that, it's going to damage your carburetor and cause you problems in the long run. So start off by adjusting your collar, moving or playing around with the point that it is at on your horn arm, and go from there. So again, we're going to adjust this first until it's about a half a millimeter from touching the rubber tubing. Now that the throttle is properly adjusted, the other thing that we're going to want to do is make sure that when we're in the idle position, so no trigger at all, we want to make sure that the carburetor is fully closed. So when I put on my brake, we don't want the arm to move on the carburetor. What will happen then is if you're at idle and you push forward on it, it's going to turn your car off. You don't want that. So again, you want it at exactly neutral to have the carburetor shut. When you're at full throttle, you want it just to be fully open, no more. And all of that is done down here. And with your trim adjustment, you can also play around up here. If you're having a really hard time, you can unscrew and screw that in or out a little bit. But this one up here is usually not messed with. Let's go to the brake now. We're going to take a look at the brake back here. I'm in neutral position right now, no throttle, no brake, and you can see that we're loose back here. So before, I'm going to have to do quite a bit of forward motion with my trigger before I get any brake at all. So we're going to want to adjust the brake. How I'm going to do that is I'm going to make sure that we're exactly at neutral. And I'm going to use my finger and I'm going to push the brake lever forward. It's not always going to be at a 90 degrees angle, depending on how much wear or shims or what brake you're using. But I'm going to push this forward until it stops. You can give it a little bit of force if you want and then let go. And you can see that we have quite a bit of lag space there that we want to get rid of. To do that, we're going to turn this right here, this little adjustment wheel, and we're going to turn it to about 1 millimeter or even 1/2 millimeter away from where the brakes engage. I'm going to use a Phillips head screwdriver and I'm going to stick it in the back of the little adjustment, or you can use your fingers if you want and turn it. However, it's a lot easier to use a screwdriver. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this in. And adjust this up. We still have a little bit more to go there. There's a lot of thread adjustment on here. And as your brakes start to wear out, you're going to adjust your brakes again. Okay. It looks like we now have about 1 millimeter or so there. I'm going to go just a little bit more. I like to have my brakes there when I need them. Alright, let's give that a shot. I'm going to pull on my throttle, and you should see this pulling back. And as it touches, when I'm in the neutral position, there's still a little bit to go before it applies any pressure. Now I'm going to go ahead and give it some throttle or some brake, and you'll see how it's pushing against, and that spring almost completely collapses. And that's how you want it to be. Got it? That should be at proper adjustment. We should be able to turn it on and drive. Now that we've got that adjusted, we're going to come back around and revisit the travel just to make sure once we've got the brakes adjusted that we didn't mess with anything else. And we're going to take a look at the carburetor, and we go full on. Okay. One last thing to do, and that is to put our screw back into the servo horn. We don't want to be leaving that empty. And that is how we adjust our linkage. It's pretty straightforward. If you're getting weird activities such as putting on your brake and having your car stall out, revisit your linkage. Okay, that pretty much covers it. Again, we're going to always, always, always turn off our car first with the switch, and then turn our radio off. Let's go ahead and get our pieces and parts out for step number 103. Let's get this thing done. I'm ready to go drive it.